What is this supposed to be? One bite was all it took for me to discern the truth. Veronica, your efforts seem lacking, despite your bold claims, Joan, my mother-in-law declared. She strode to the sink, her face a mask of displeasure, and dumped her plate with a clatter. Please, spare an old woman your culinary experiments. Her words left me dumbfounded. Yet, I persisted. After finishing my studies, I met Donald at work. 3 years of blissful marriage have passed since. Post-nuptials, I traded my office job for managing a nail salon, a dream realized through a certification I earned during my corporate days. Donald, ever the busy professional, still finds moments for us, seamlessly integrating into weekend chores without a nudge. I cherish the life we've built, grateful for such an incredible partner. But there's a persistent thorn: my in-laws, Joan and Bill. They've settled in a suburban condo, a mere half-hour drive from us, their nest now empty of Donald's siblings. Their visits, perhaps a salve for their solitude, have grown irksome. At first I tolerated their intrusions, but over time, their critiques sharpened, especially in Donald's absence. I'm barraged with unsolicited advice and judgments. It's a wonder how such parents raised a son as extraordinary as Donald. Their unexpected weekday visits are the peak of my stress. Veronica, your fridge. Those budget meals? Really? Bill lounged on our couch, flicking on the TV, while Joan summoned me to the kitchen. Bracing for the usual cleaning lecture, I was instead met with a jab at my cooking. Donald deserves more than these tasteless, make-ahead meals. You're more focused on nails than nourishing your husband, she chided. I pride myself on a diverse menu, mindful of Donald's health, but my in-laws, with their penchant for richer cuisine, find my lighter dishes bland. Joan's culinary style leaned heavily on oil and generous dashes of sugar or salt, a habit that raised health alarms if indulged in too often. Donald often joked about enduring these dishes as a kid. Unbeknownst to us, Joan habitually brought her own creations whenever she visited, and true to form, she arrived with a sharp remark that day. You seem to find fault in everything. I've taken the liberty of disposing of your lackluster meal. You threw it away? I asked, incredulously. Absolutely. Donald will be thrilled with the MI special tonight. I was astounded. Peering into the kitchen trash, I saw the chef's discarded meals, a clear sign of their finicky palates. Joan's critique caught me off guard, and Bill didn't hesitate to add his 2 cents. This is disappointing. You used to be so much more capable, he lamented. Understanding each other's preferences is crucial, but it's not just about that. Stop your griping, Veronica. You'd do well to learn from Joan's cooking, and while you're at it, fetch me a coffee. Bill settled back to his television, his command lingering in the air. Joan was known for her diligence before marriage, but now she lamented, young people these days. Yes, of course. My apologies, I murmured, delivering Bill's coffee just as he began his usual tirade on the younger generation. He took a sip, releasing a heavy sigh when I echoed internally. They stayed for hours, turning our home into a whirlwind of disruption, treating it as their own. Their audacity to discard someone else's food was baffling. At dinner, Donald's face was etched with regret as he apologized. I've warned them time and again, yet they seem to think they can say or do anything. I feel like I'm not taken seriously. I'll talk to them again later, he promised. I know. I should be firmer, I conceded. Don't apologize, Donald. We can't go on like this indeed, especially with both of us working, I added. Donald often admonished his parents for overstepping, but despite his gentle demeanor, his words seemed to slide off the impervious Bill. After Donald's firm talks, his parents would usually steer clear for a bit. This break allowed me to help out at my friend's nail salon, though the peace was fleeting. Within days they resumed their frequent visits, and due to Donald's remarks, they suspected I was swaying him, which only added to my frustration. Then, as if on cue, they arrived early one Saturday morning, just after Donald was called away for work. Did you discuss this with Donald? They probed, insinuating he was coerced into speaking out. Certainly, he wouldn't have asked us to postpone our visits, they said, their sarcasm thinly veiled. Their biting comments made any dialogue seem futile, akin to retrieving something from a deep, insulated vault. The sight of Joan earlier with that container had unsettled me. It was packed with an array of rich ingredients, and Joan's intentions became clear all too quickly. I thought I'd prepare a hearty meal today, inspired by your culinary approach, Joan declared, as if expecting praise. Donald looks so overworked these days, she set to work with a zeal that belied the impending havoc in my kitchen. Peeking into the cooler bag, I noted the lavish ingredients, the price tags on the meat making my eyes widen. Joan's smirk grew as she saw my astonishment. I suppose you stick to budget-friendly shops for your meals, but quality ingredients are important, she lectured. We must think of the future, after all. Her words stung with irony. Isn't it your role to provide support? What's the use of being a nail technician or whatever you call it? Bill's blunt words stunned me into silence. They relied on Donald financially, yet here they were, splurging on expensive groceries. And now they were belittling my profession. In a healthy relationship, it's about mutual support. Without needless worry, I wanted to retort, but held back. Engaging further felt like swallowing venom. Suppressing my tears, I mustered a smile to deal with the unfolding situation. Living with people of such divergent values was a recipe for financial anarchy, a thought that had crossed my mind more than once. Donald, not being the eldest, had once quipped that living with his parents would be overwhelming. I had no intention of us all living together, and was figuring out how to politely keep our distance. Then, unexpectedly, the scenario took a drastic turn. On a bright Saturday morning, the doorbell rang. Peering through the intercom, there were Joan and Bill, with what looked like movers trailing behind them, boxes in tow. The realization struck me dumb. Could you explain? I managed. Good morning. We've decided to move in today, they announced as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Our old place is cleared out, and the movers are here. Veronica, could you step aside? They directed the movers as if they owned the place, and the movers looked to me, confused by my stunned silence. Under Joan and Bill's insistent gaze, they began their work. Soon after, a groggy Donald appeared, bewildered by the commotion. He had no prior knowledge of their plan. Mom? Dad? What's going on? He asked, his voice a mix of confusion and concern. We're moving in, they stated matter-of-factly, as if it were a done deal. Do we have a spare room? Well, we planned on using that once we start a family. Donald tried to reason with them, but Bill's stern look cut him short. What about us? Are you going to leave your own parents out in the cold? Their intensity was paralyzing. Despite the ludicrousness of their claim, Donald and I were speechless. Veronica, what should we do? Donald whispered to me, his voice barely audible. I felt powerless to refuse them. That's fine, I heard myself say, the words hollow. It's temporary, until we're ready to have children. Joan's retort was swift. You'll need my help when you have kids. I doubt you could manage on your own. Donald, visibly upset, started to object. But they were already inside, the procession of boxes continuing unabated. Donald and I exhaled in unison, bracing ourselves for the trying times ahead. Fate had thrown an unexpected curveball, and suddenly, I was living under the same roof as my in-laws. Navigating daily life with Bill and Joan proved to be a test of patience. Their presence was constant and overbearing, intruding on my routines and freely offering critiques. Off to work again, Veronica, Joan would ask, her tone laced with judgment. Yes, I'll be back in the evening, I'd reply, cut off before I could finish. Joan's brow creased, her sigh loaded with disapproval. Such dedication to what some might call a trivial job. It must be nice, fussing over nails for money. She reminisced about her own hardships, her voice dripping with sarcasm, making my morning departure even more trying. What's wrong, Veronica? You seem upset, Bill probed, his words sharp. I left swiftly, my smile forced and fading fast. Returning from work one day, I noticed something amiss. Isn't that my nail kit? The yard was in disarray, my professional tools strewn about, nail tips littered across the lawn, contaminated and ruined. Sorry about that. It was in the way of my cleaning, Joan called out, her apology as hollow as her concern. Overwhelmed, I silently sorted my nail kit, tears streaming down my face. I was contemplating how to give my in-laws a taste of their own medicine when life threw another surprise. I was pregnant. The news delighted Joan and Bill, yet the household tension remained palpable. Donald suggested a serious talk, emphasizing our child's well-being and hinting that his parents might need to move in with one of his siblings if things didn't change. They did little but grumble and idle, contributing nothing to the household upkeep. I doubted their ability to assist with the baby and decided it was time to address the mounting issues. We rarely shared meals, but that evening we sat down together for dinner. Donald saw it as the opportune moment for a heart-to-heart. With neither the country nor any divine intervention to distract us, it was the perfect day to lay everything on the table. In the absence of Bill and Joan, I took the opportunity to prepare their favorite meals, hoping to soften the atmosphere for the difficult conversation ahead. When they returned in the evening, we sat down for dinner, and Donald initiated the talk. "Hey, there's something I need to bring up," he started. "Given Veronica's pregnancy and our current living situation, I've been thinking it might be best to find a new place for us, or perhaps you could stay with my brother. What do you think?" Their faces darkened at the suggestion. "Why now?" they asked. "With a baby coming, extra help would be useful, right?" Donald pressed. "Are you willing to help out with the child?" Joan, sensing the underlying motive, quickly jumped in. "Of course, having someone experienced like me would be invaluable, wouldn't it?" Veronica, she seemed anxious about the prospect of having to move. I would usually respond with a faint smile and deflect, but the image of my discarded nail kit in the yard still stung. With Donald's support, I gathered the courage to confront them. "You moved in without notice, and since then you've either relaxed or gone out. You also belittle my job, even throwing my work tools outside. I find it hard to believe that you would be of any real help with the baby." "This isn't good for the child," I said, my voice steady but firm. They looked at me, a mix of shock and annoyance on their faces. "What are you trying to say?" Joan asked defensively. "You're about to be a mother, it's normal to fuss over small things," Bill added, trying to downplay my concerns. Donald, who had been quiet, finally spoke up, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made them take notice. "We need to think about what's best for our child," he said. But before we could delve deeper into the conversation, Joan interrupted with her critique of the meal, dumping her plate in the sink, her frustration palpable. Her reaction left me speechless, the tension in the room thickening. In this moment, it was clear that the living arrangement was untenable. Donald and I needed to stand united and make a decision that would ensure a healthy and stress-free environment for our growing family, even if it meant making the tough choice to ask his parents to leave. In a pivotal moment of assertiveness, Donald shattered the tense silence with a resounding slam on the table, a gesture so uncharacteristic of his usual composure that it caught everyone, including myself, off guard. His anger was not just a flash of temper, it was a deep-seated frustration towards his parents, Joan and Bill, who had overstepped boundaries and taken advantage of my goodwill for too long. "I've overlooked too much because of the respect I have for you as my parents," Donald declared, his voice firm with conviction. "But the disrespect you've shown towards Veronica, and by extension, our future child, is something I cannot and will not tolerate. This is our home, and our family's well-being is my priority. If you can't respect that, you can't stay here." The intensity of his words left a stark silence in its wake. It was a clear ultimatum, and with no signs of compliance from his parents, Donald took matters into his own hands, beginning the process of moving their belongings out, signaling the end of their stay. Joan and Bill, faced with the reality of their son's decision, packed their belongings, though not without expressing their discontent. "You'll regret this," they warned, bitterness tainting their farewell. But Donald's resolve remained unshaken. After they left, Donald turned to me with an apology, but it was I who felt a swell of gratitude for his decisive action to protect our family's peace. Joan and Bill's attempt to relocate to Donald's older brother's home was ill-fated, given the already strained relations. Their lavish lifestyle and insensitivity came under scrutiny once more, leading to another clash and their eventual settling into a modest studio apartment, a stark contrast to their previous indulgences. Their financial predicament, now evident to all, was a direct result of their choices. The reality of their situation was unavoidable, and it seemed they were now experiencing the consequences of their actions. Seeing them in our local area, the frail and bewildered state of Donald's parents caught his elder brother by surprise. In contrast, I've been blessed with the birth of a healthy son, and our lives had been on a positive trajectory. Donald, brimming with vitality, consistently carves out precious moments to bond with our little one amidst his professional responsibilities. The journey of raising a child is undoubtedly challenging, yet reflecting on the strength I found within myself during pregnancy, I am dedicated to pouring my heart into parenting, relying solely on my own capabilities. My colleague, for whom I work as a nail technician, recently proposed the expansion of our business with a new salon. She sees a managerial position in my future, should I choose to accept it once our son is a bit older. I'm thankful for my perseverance in my career, despite my in-laws' lack of support, and I cherish the joy that my work brings me. Moving forward, I plan to live each day in harmony with my personal tempo, eternally grateful for the courage that both Donald and I mustered during that pivotal time.